Welcome to the Community Environmental Council's first webinar of 2022. We're so glad you've joined us. Recognized as a 2020 California Nonprofit of the Year, CEC advances rapid and equitable solutions to the climate crisis. This webinar is being recorded, and you will receive a link to the recording and other resources after the event. We welcome your engagement. So in addition to adding your info to the chat, we invite you to add questions to the Q&A during the presentations. We'll answer them as we are able during the presentation if possible and at the Q&A time at the end. We apologize in advance if we are not able to respond to every question. And please use the chat for any other comments you might have and resources that you want to share. We have a great support team helping us today, including Paul from West Beach, as you will see as a panelist, and Sarah and Kristen from CEC's team who are monitoring the chat and the Q&A. We have a couple of poll questions to share with you now, just to sort of check your familiarity with today's topic. So we're gonna launch that poll, and if you're able, please participate. Just a couple of questions there for you. And while you are clicking on that, I'll add a few more about CEC. We have a 5-year strategic plan, and we are implementing it with a framework built around climate policy, justice, resilience, and leadership. Our leadership program is creating events like these that build a base of climate knowledge that we hope inspires you to take action. Today's program focuses on our relatively new UC Climate Stewards program. CEC is a partner in the California-wide UC Climate Stewards program, offering a certified climate leadership course designed to give people the tools they need for community activism. I trained as an instructor in the summer of 2020, and we offered our first pilot course last winter and our second last summer. Our next course begins in 2 weeks, and we'll share more about that later with you. Our first 2 courses trained 24 people in climate communication, mitigation, resilience, and activist skills. They were mostly from Santa Barbara County, but we did have a few people from SLO and Ventura counties, which is great. In this showcase, you'll hear from several of our alumni about their experience in the course, their capstone project, and how they are putting their newfound climate knowledge to work in the community. But before we start with them, we are lucky to have here with us today one of the statewide program specialists, Eliot T. Freutel. And I'll tell you a little bit about Eliot before we bring him on. Eliot T. Freutel, him, is the Southern California Community Education Specialist for the California Naturalist and Climate Stewards programs. His background is in marine science and island ecology in formal education, focusing on Spanish language access to programs and educational materials, inclusive program design, and community-led climate change resilience. Most of his days are spent exploring his backyard and natural spaces with his 2- and 4-year-old kids. And I have seen them on Zoom, and they are adorable. So Eliot, I'm gonna turn it over to you now to give us an overview of the Climate Stewards program.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see so many people interested in the program. It's a very rewarding, very awesome program, so it's really great to see all the interest. I'm going to introduce you to what the Climate Stewards program actually is and what it consists of. And to just kind of reintroduce myself, my name is Eliot. I am on Kitch-Tongva land down here in what is known as Long Beach, California. And I work for the University of California. And we are under we call it the 11th campus. So we have UC Santa Barbara, UC Davis, UC Irvine. We are UC Agriculture and Natural Resources, UC A&R for short. It is a statewide program. Underneath that umbrella, we have several other programs. One you might be really familiar with is 4-H. But we are the California Naturalist program, and we offer 2 separate certifications. The first one is a California Naturalist certification, which is a course in California natural history, so plants, animals, water, geology, those kind of things. And our second course, which is pretty new, and actually Community Environmental Council is the one of the first 3 partner organizations to offer this course. It launched in 2020, and we actually have about 251 graduates so far as of the end of 2021, which is absolutely amazing. So yeah, anyway, so we are a statewide program. We work with community partners to deliver our course. So we train organizations like Community Environmental Council. We work with Santa Barbara Botanical Gardens for our other course. We basically identify and work with those partners to develop and co-create their own course and deliver it to their communities. It is a 40-hour course in climate change communication and community resilience. And there are several other requirements that go along with it that we can really get into the details about with the questions if you have them, but I'll save that for a little bit later on if they come up. But some of the things you can expect from this course is putting together a capstone project, which you are probably going to hear about at least one or two of the really incredible, amazing work that comes out of doing this course on the individual level. You're going to hear Alhan's presentation in just a little bit, but that's something that we share pretty far and wide because it is such an incredible piece of work. And we see capstone projects coming out of the organization, from the individuals every time they finish the course. They are going to be working on a community science project. They are also going to be attending those 40 hours of either in-person or online learning. So there's just a few other quick requirements. The benefits for this course, it is available for 40 hours of it is available for 4 units of University of California college credit. It's a certification. So if you are going to be going to look for jobs in this field, the certification really says you've made all the requirements and you're able to kind of walk into a job interview or into a volunteer opportunity with this under your belt. It is a community of practice. We have partners all over the state. In Southern California, I think we have 4 partners now, 3 of which are actively actively delivering the Climate Stewards course. So when we do have regional events, you can actually meet up with other climate stewards and share your experience and work on different fun new projects. We do have statewide, not just regional, but statewide events. There's one coming up in October of 2022. I forgot that we were already in 2022. And that's gonna be up in Tahoe for Climate Stewards and Naturalists. So we have this really amazing connected network of naturalists and stewards and partner organizations. So that is a really brief recap of what the program consists of. It is largely delivered on Canvas. So you will be spending time learning in the Canvas ecosystem with opportunities to connect with your fellow classmates in person or online or on really interactive, really fun field trips and field experiences as well. So it's a really awesome opportunity. We're really glad you're here, excited about the program. My contact information is on that slide. I will also put it into the chat right now so everyone has it. Where did it go? ETF, there we go. There's my contact information, my email, if you have any questions about it. If anyone has any questions right now, please feel free to enter those into the chat. Or if we have the ability to come off mute, you can definitely ask those directly. But for more information about the program, you can visit calnat.ucanr.edu. That takes you just kind of our general site, but our Climate Stewards specific website, just add a / at the end of that and add in CS for Climate Stewards to take you to our page with a bunch of additional information for the program.
Thank you, Eliot. Appreciate you being here and sharing that with us. I have a little anecdote for how CC got involved with this program on the ground floor, which has been really amazing for us, is that our CEO attended the Pioneers Conference up in the Bay Area a few years ago, and she had really been having her ear to the ground looking for something like this that we could do with the community, and just heard about it just through word of mouth there, and raised her hand and said, I really want to get us involved. So it's exciting that we have been really part of the forefront of offering this. We're currently the only organization on the Central Coast that offers it. So, but they are, and we can include this information in our follow-up, offering the instructor training twice a year now. So if you're at an organization that you think would like to also be a partner in this, they're making it very easy to become trained. Sarah shared the poll results with me that you all participated in, and about 60% of you are new to hearing about this and are also very interested in it. So we're really happy to be able to provide this information to you with the large number of interest that is out there. So thanks again, Eliot. And as questions come up, we will make sure we monitor that and follow up with you later in today's program with questions. Also, just wanted to say that if you're not copying down information off the slides and contact information out of the chat, we will definitely include that in the follow-up email that we send to you that has the recording and all these other types of resources. So don't worry if something passes you by and you missed it. We'll definitely make sure we get that out to you. Next up, we are going to dive into sharing with you directly from some of our graduates from 2021, and we're going alphabetical order. So first up is Alhan Diaz-Correa. Alhan is a Santa Maria native, and he earned his bachelor's degree in biochemistry from the University of Montana in Missoula. We're really glad that he came back to the area because since March 2020, Alhan has been on CEC's staff as a community ambassador, working to build trust with frontline communities. He currently resides in Guadalupe and leads CEC's outreach and community organizing in the North County area of Santa Barbara. Alhan took the pilot Climate Stewards course, and his capstone project, as Eliot mentioned there, generated interest in the statewide program. And I should mention that Eliot and also Sarah Mae Nelson, who is another program organizer, they have attended both of our capstone sessions. So they are very interested in seeing what our students come up with and how they want to get active in the community. And so with that, Alhan has a few slides to share. I will turn it over to you, Alhan, to give us kind of an overview of your presentation, and then we'll have a couple minutes to chat about it. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you for that introduction, Kathi. So first, before the slides come up, I did want to share, like Kathi mentioned, that my background is in science. And so I think one of the interesting things about the Climate Stewards program was that it wasn't just for scientists. It really does allow for a wide variety of participation and kind of knowledge to come into the program. Again, not just my technical background, but just my activist background. I've been around a lot of environmentalists and activists. And so that really allowed me to come into this program kind of ready to go and kind of dig a little deeper. And this program really did give a wide breadth of the variety of topics that are within environmentalism. And so I think it's great that it brings a certification with it. But I think if you bring up the slides, like we can talk a little bit about the project that basically having the time dedicated to just working on my own project allowed me to think a bit more deeply about. Like Kathi mentioned, I grew up here in Guadalupe and Santa Maria, which is a big ag town. And so pesticides is a big concern here. But however, a lot of community members just don't have the vocabulary that decision makers and leaders are usually kind of keeping their ear out for. So one of the things that I wanted to do was kind of give a broad description and a bilingual description of kind of air pollutants. One of the things that I believe in is that community members are already experts, that we don't need to teach them more, except, you know, what's important is the signs to look out for and the vocabulary that leaders and politicians are usually looking for. So this is the first slide of my capstone. It really, in addition to my working with the community, organizing different projects, this capstone just allowed me to talk about air pollutants. So on the next slide, all of these pictures, by the way, were taken in the region in Santa Barbara County and Santa Maria. And so one of the questions that I wanted to make sure that community members were aware of was just how it affected them. Exactly what is particulate matter, which is a big way that decision makers and lawmakers talk about air pollutants, and then specifically talking about the signs that they can look out for within their communities. And as you can tell, it was bilingual. And that was really important to me just because we have a multilingual community, not just Spanish, but also Mixtec and other indigenous languages, and languages like Mandarin and Tagalog for a big Filipino community we have here in North County. And so I only selected a few slides because it is, some detailed information, but I just wanted to cover the questions that we wanted to bring up and really just allow the space to community members to tell us what their issues are. On the next slide, and this is just like the final slide that I picked, was just, again, extending that idea of what community members and climate science looks like. This program, again, does certify us to be climate stewards and to talk about this in the different topics, but really everyone is a climate steward already. And so one of the things that I wanted to leave people with was this idea of community science that it can involve you going outside and telling us, what it smells like, what it looks like, what it feels like, and that's enough. And that scientists are really here to listen to that, and also community organizations like CEC. You can see here at the bottom, one of the options is air quality monitoring. That is something that is severely lacking here in North County. And because of the time that I was able to think about this issue, I was really able to connect with a history of important partners like the Guadalupe Elementary School, like the Dune Center that is in Guadalupe, and a few other partners to think about how can we solve this issue. And that was one of the biggest benefits from my time with the Climate Stewards, is that I was able to prepare this slide so we can kind of share with community members at listening sessions, but also to develop a grant or a project. And this really was able to kind of spin off into this air monitoring project grant that we submitted in October. Hopefully we'll learn in the next couple of months if we get it. But if we do, this would really provide important infrastructure and education about pollution and the data that's needed, mostly the data that decision makers ask for. Because again, I think it's important to stress that community members are already experts. You don't need a certification to be a climate steward, but what this program gives you is the breadth, right? How big it touches. And it really touches every aspect of our lives. And so the last personal thing that I wanted to say here is just, in addition to the grant that we submitted, I was able to talk about my experience with the program and with the grant when I applied at UCSB for my PhD. Again, I don't know if I'll get in, but it was really a great experience to kind of show people that community members from these regions care, and one, are already experts just growing up here, but also are willing to take the training to truly become a trusted voice in the community. And that's something that I really like to work towards. But what's great about this program is that it extends the opportunity to new community members. And so with that, I think I'll leave it there because I could talk forever.
Thank you, Alhan. That was great. And you bring up a really important point, I think, because sometimes seeing the capstone presentation in the syllabus is a barrier for people. Because it seems kind of daunting. And I think you really help put it into the perspective that this, especially if you're already working in this field in some way or have a keen interest in a certain topic, that the capstone project is really a way for you to kind of solidify that and put it into presentation form and really build a plan. It's not so much that you have to do the work, it's more about building the plan and sharing out the plan. And when Alhan shared out his plan at our capstone presentations last, I think it was March, April, whenever, seems like a long time ago. Eliot saw the application of what of what Alhan had come up with in other parts of the region, and particularly in Southern California communities that are very close to freeways. Alhan's was about ag land, but there are a lot of ground pollutants that affect people who live next to freeways. So having these projects and being able to share them out, builds the momentum for some of these topics that, as Alhan pointed out, might be, sort of not in people's top of mind. And also, just helping Alhan in so many other ways, that he mentioned, besides just, participating in the class. So Alhan, just to close out our part of the discussion here for now, I just want to ask you one quick question. And what was the most memorable part of the course for you? You brought up a lot of great points, but I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to share about your experience.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing that I noticed was the generational perspective. I was one of the younger folks, but there were a few others that were in a similar age group as I was, either, recent college grads or kind of into this field. And then there were people who have been here who have worked in Santa Barbara, for example, for decades. And for them, it seemed like new information, right? That this was something that they were really hoping for and wanting to take as much as they could from the program. And for a lot of younger folks, it seemed that this was a conversation that we have had our entire lives. And it wasn't a discussion of whether climate change was happening, but it was more a discussion of the solutions that are being proposed, how we can change that, and how we can better communicate that. And I don't think I necessarily always appreciated that difference, but it is really important when you have to think about, are we talking to an older audience that we have to convince, right? There's a lot of barriers. Yeah. And the fact that with younger folks, there are just so many less barriers. The questions are so different than we've historically been having. And I think that was one of the great insights that I had. And just having the time, I think that was the other benefit was we wish we had more time to dissect these and to break these apart.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. Great points. Yeah, we have had a really nice generational span in the classes so far, and that really has been helpful in understanding each other's perspectives, because there's a big emphasis in the class on trauma awareness in our communications. And, some people have had many more experiences with climate change than others, and just being aware of that as we interact as a class, but then as we go out into the community and interact. So wonderful points. Thank you again, Alhan, for that. And we did at our summer class, basically exit interviews, I guess you would call them. We did videos because that class was in person. And so we had a little more flexibility. And so we're going to share some clips of those students with you as a way to bring more voices into today's program and to show off some of our videos. So Camille Dupuis took the class in the summer, and here is a little clip of her talking about her experience.
Hi, I'm Camille Dupuis, a newly certified UC Climate Steward. I decided to take this course to be better versed in climate science and be a better communicator. I now am leaving this course feeling like a much stronger communicator and more active person in the community, and it will also roll over into sort of building and strengthening my business model for my small business here in town.
Thank you for that. We worked with Wilhan Productions to make those videos, and he did a great job. Next up is in studio, as they say, is Claire Fackler, a graduate of our summer class. And Claire has been working for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, known as NOAA, since 1999. Her work helps bring the ocean into America's classrooms, as well as to inspire ocean and climate literacy and conservation through underwater parks known as National Marine Sanctuaries. She was born and raised in the Hawaiian Islands and has lived in Santa Barbara for many years. Claire has a strong passion for ocean conservation and stewardship and is proud to be a new UC Climate Steward. I've worked with Claire for many years with the Ocean Guardians program that CEC has participated in with under her leadership, and Claire is also the co-chair of CEC's Partnership Council. You have a lot of slides to share here, Claire, and they're all fabulous and adorable. And so if you want to just
we'll dive right in. Yeah, go ahead and
as you go. Yeah, just let them know
cue
when you
those
want.
up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Kathi. I'm pleased to be here, and I wanted to share a little bit about working with elementary school students. So we'll just jam to the next slide here because I do have lots of visuals that I like to click through relatively quickly. So the program that Kathi mentioned that we've collaborated with the Community Environmental Council is our Ocean Guardians School. There's several schools in Santa Barbara that are these Ocean Guardian schools. And I've been working specifically with Adams Elementary School off Las Positas, which is a Title I school. Go to the next slide. These students are actively engaged in better understanding their local watershed and how their actions impact not only the watershed, so those creeks and rivers and streams that go out into the ocean, but then ultimately the Santa Barbara Channel, and then their closest national marine sanctuary, which is right off the coast at the Channel Islands. So it's not only a national park, it's one of America's underwater treasures. It's a national marine sanctuary. So on the next slide, you'll get a sense of what these students have been doing, and I will let you know how I've been trying to incorporate more of the climate literacy into the work I'm doing with these students. So it's an after-school program, generally for 4th through 6th grade students, and they have an opportunity to explore and learn how to appreciate the ocean through things like kayaking. Next. They learn a lot about their local watershed. For this particular school, they're in the Oruro Borough watershed. So many of them are familiar with their local beach, Hendry's Beach or Oruro Borough Beach. And so now they're getting a better sense all the way from like a sunset hike up into the foothills and then better exploring the watershed as they make their way down into their local beach area. Next. They participate in a lot of different stewardship activities, like this example of a beach cleanup. Next slide. They have a bioswale on their campus, which is where all of the storm drains come under the main road of Las Positas into this giant funnel that then shoots out into the side of their campus that is adjacent to the golf course, the municipal golf course. And so we've done some native plant restoration working with the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden to try to make sure that that bioswale is as effective as possible, where it holds onto that water and brings it down into the groundwater before just kind of running off as floodwater. Next. And of course, we do also introduce these students to hands-on science, like different monitoring protocols. Here, they're monitoring for the little Pacific mole crab, the Emerita analoga. And on the next slide, we also try to engage these students. This is pre-pandemic, when they had opportunities to actually go into the city council chambers and work with Santa Barbara Channel Keeper and Community Environmental Council on their, in this case, it was the Skip the Straw campaign. So they made public comments and actually went to local restaurants in coordination with CEC and Channel Keeper to talk to the restaurant owners and managers and staff to highly recommend skipping the plastic straw and then moving to the other alternatives and only on request. So where do we kick into with the climate stewards? I believe on the next slide here. So now I'm trying to find more appropriate ways to incorporate what I learned in the UC Climate Stewards course for this elementary school audience. So I've been incorporating information about climate literacy and climate content into the programming that we're doing. We are currently offering this after school program at Adams Elementary, and it's also at Kellogg's. They do a different program, but similar. And next. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is to get these young students to understand and start conversations about climate change. At Adams Elementary, it's unique that they have a design center. So every student in K through 6 will go to that design center and learn about science, technology, engineering, and math. And the instructor there, Mr. Fetterbush, is extremely open to bringing in more content about climate change to get these students up to speed. So not only, next slide, should they talk about it, but really the idea is that, you know, if they have ideas and we bring it together as a community and take some action, that we can lead to change. So really, I was most excited to participate in the Climate Steward course because I wanted to meet other like-minded individuals in the community that I could potentially partner with. I absolutely loved learning about local case studies to better understand what's going on in my local community. And then probably one of the other major highlights for me was the in-person field trips. So getting to see how community members and different organizations are addressing climate change and what kind of solutions and citizen science opportunities are out there to be involved with. So I think those are some of the highlights, and I continue to look for ways to incorporate what I've learned in the Climate Stewards course into this Ocean Guardian School program, as well as other education outreach and awareness programs that I do through my regular work and in my personal life.
Thank you, Claire. Wow, that was really rich. And Claire's project is another example of really using the capstone, which is somebody asked in the questions, what is a capstone? So I think it's appropriate to take a moment here to answer that, which is a separate project outside of the curriculum of the class to give you the opportunity to work on something that you're passionate about, that's just you. And there can be group capstones. Camille, that you just saw in the video, has a business with her partner, and they did their capstone on turning their business into a B Corp. And theirs was a joint group project because it was their business that they run together. So, you know, Claire also used her capstone to enrich and expand some of the work that she's already doing. Do you have any final thoughts of, you know, what you outlined so well, what you enjoyed about the class, and anything particularly memorable that you want to share?
Yeah, I guess just to re-emphasize that it was a great opportunity to really spend some quality time throughout the 40-hour course doing the Canvas platform, which is the online platform through the UC program, to really dive into the content and material, and then have the opportunity, either if it's done remotely or in person, to work with those new classmates to really discuss and digest and process and communicate. And so it just was a great opportunity to really focus in on the climate change science, and particularly, you know, some of the solutions that we need to move forward with. And here, and the presentations, we had guest speakers that would come into the class, and that was great too, to really hear what some local organizations are doing. And I didn't quite mention that, so thank you.
Yeah, we have had fun with the guest speakers from, you know, that really bring the local piece in, because the Canvas platform, which is the textbook basically, and the units that you go through are focused statewide. So we bring the, you know, the place-based piece of the program in with the guest speakers, and in the conversations that we have in the class sessions. The class sessions are more about discussion rather than lecture, which I think is what Claire's pointing out is kind of one of the fun pieces of that. So thank you very much for that. Before we move on to our next speaker, we have another short video clip from you, from one of our summer students, Eric Fruth. Now's not the time to take a break from your screen, because it is a very short clip, and I think you'll enjoy it. So.
The UC Climate Stewards program is for people like me who care about making the world a habitable place for future generations.
See what I mean? Really short, but he really he boiled it down really nicely there. Next, I'm very pleased to introduce you to Sandra Grasso-Boyd. Science, similar to Alan, science has always been Sandy's passion. In her storied career, she has taught biology and chemistry and was an aerospace engineer. Her appreciation for the environment has intensified during the last 30 years. Sandy has volunteered with the Wildlife Care Network, the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden, and is a docent at Lotusland. When young climate activists captured the world's attention, demanding that their elders do more to protect the planet, Sandy joined the League of Women Voters, serving on the Climate Change Forum Committee. And that's where we met Sandy when CEC co-sponsored that event and worked with her very closely on it, an experience that we enjoyed very much. And she is a graduate of our summer course. So welcome, Sandy. Thank you for moving heaven and earth to be here today. She had a doctor's appointment and a power outage at her house, so she is zooming in from another part of CEC's office today. So welcome, and just if you want to share a little bit about what motivated you to join the Climate Stewards class.
Thank you I'm glad to be here and asking me to participate in this. I wanted to become an informed climate advocate and as well engage productively with other climate advocates in the sense of learning from them, especially from younger people, because they are so enthusiastic about their beliefs in climate and the climate crisis. And I also wanted to be a better spokesman for the Santa Barbara League of Women Voters so that I could help enhance the public understanding of the climate emergency and the need to take action.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, and you have been very active in a lot of different ways. So your capstone project was about a facility that you recently moved to, and you really wanted to see if they could reduce the amount of disposables that they were using in their food service, which came at kind of an awkward time because, as we know, the use of disposables increased in the past couple of years, somewhat by necessity due to the pandemic. But it feels also like your project has morphed and grown. You want to talk a little bit about how you still found a way to get involved at your new residence in a different way.
Yes, I went in there being sort of dismayed by the amount of this waste of the cardboard contents that each of the residents needed to have. Because of the pandemic, meals had to be served in people's apartments, and they were served in these cartons and then thrown away with all the food waste. I found a lot of resistance to making any changes, that residents didn't want to use reusables. And nevertheless, I put together a pamphlet of what might be reusable materials that could be used, and got in touch with the dining chair, so to speak. And at least he said that he would approach the people in the headquarters about looking into some other alternatives. What I really discovered is that the residents were more concerned eventually with the food waste that was being dumped into the garbage. And I remember being at the Tagus landfill as a field trip, which was one of the highlights of the course, and learning about how food waste was being mixed with green waste to produce mulch and to produce methane that could be actually used to provide electricity. And I thought, well, why don't we at least try to do something as an experiment? And so my husband and I got a container, and we started putting our food waste in that container and bringing it to the food waste bin and dumping it there, which we found was pretty empty for a while, and realizing the kitchen wasn't really using it appropriately either. So we made that known, and that's changed for the food in the kitchen. But as far as people in the community of the residents, it was, again, doing something different. And what I was able to do was find some agreement that we should talk about this. And I got permission from the Residents Association to start a discussion group where interested people could at least bring some of these matters up. And that began after the capstone project actually was finished, but grew out of that whole effort. And the meetings that started to happen started in September, just as we finished our program. And we've met 3 or 4 times since then. And I've used the program in many ways to bring information to this group. And the group people were 14, 15 people that came. The first time that we met, I just had them talk about what their thoughts about the climate change is and what experiences did they have. And this was something I learned from the course, not to just jump into telling them what I know, but to let them talk. And that was, they were very pleased with that. And they all said, oh yes, let's come back and have another discussion after that. And so that's how we started. And I try to approach the material from the course materials that we had in our program. And then I brought in the COP26. So a little bit of outside materials that was happening. And I think it's been very successful. Now, unfortunately, I had an accident in December and I could not continue meeting. But I hope to continue doing it because I found someone who's willing to take it on and maybe bring it back to life and have these discussions going on again. In the meantime, the food waste material thing became very interested. And people were saying, how did you do that? What can I do? And so we've got a few supporters in that whole project. And now that we've learned about the new law about how we have to contain our food waste, Bill, my husband, really has become the implementer of this whole thing since I wasn't able to move around. And he's done a great job. And he's now the chair of the environmental committee in the Residents Association and was able to bring up the subject and not get, oh my God, we don't want to hear that kind of stuff. Because, we're working with people who are 70, 80, 90 years old. And there's a lot of resistance to even, why should I think about this? I don't have much more life to give. And it's just, so it was nice to get 15 people who were dedicated to meet every time we had a meeting, and then to bring that up at a bigger wide association meeting and see that there was interest in how can we do this better. So that's where we're at this point. How are we going to get the management to help us along? And so because we can't have everybody bring their food waste to the food waste bin, we have to have a way in which management can pick up some of this as well. And I think that's what we're going to be working on right now. And this all happened out of the course that I took. I really found a lot of excitement in the younger people who were in the class. I was obviously the grandmother of the group, and they were very tolerant of my I need to hear better. I need to have them speak up louder. And they were had such a different attitude than the people I were moving in with, that I got that excitement out of being in the class with them.
Yeah, well, you brought a lot of your own excitement to the class with us. And then I think what you just laid out is so inspiring, because you started in one place to try to be a change maker, and you pivoted, as needed, and have now really broadened it out to having these, conversations about current events related to climate. And now you've got somebody willing to take over the discussion. Sandy has kept me in the loop on this, and they take minutes. And Bill, I think you could see Bill's arm a little bit in some of the shots that we had of Sandy there. You can wait, Bill. Bill is really a key partner with Sandy in making all of this happen. And
we're a team.
You are a wonderful team, and it's just been so great to have your influence and guidance and so many of these things. So really appreciate all your efforts, and that you have really in a short time. When did you move to Vista Del Monte? Maybe 6 or 8 months ago.
Yep.
Transformative. You've really been a transformative couple there in such a short amount of time, and during a pandemic. So really inspiring.
What I learned though out of this whole thing, that it's a misconception that climate action isn't occurring because people don't believe in it. I really do. They are aware of it, Some are very strongly believing of. The biggest problem is that they don't know what to do. And they don't know what would be the use of one person doing something. And it seemed that what was needed was a way to open up to them, to talk about the beliefs, their problems, and then, discover together what those solutions could be. I just read an interview, and I encourage people to read this. It was in the New York Times Magazine this weekend with Katharine Hayhoe. She's a scientist with a nonprofit organization, the National Conservancy. And she says that, quote, that 26% of people believe climate change is urgent problem, but as I said, but they are unsure of what they can do to solve it. And that we're so individualistic that we think it affects our perspective on climate change. We think it's all about us. And then we're racked with guilt because we didn't recycle a bottle, or we ate a hamburger when people are saying eat less meat. And she says, just start by doing something, anything, and talk about it. Talk about how it matters to your family, your home, your city, and the activity that you love. Connect the dots to your heart so you don't see climate change as a separate bucket, but rather as a whole in the bucket of every other thing that you already care about in your life. And like I learned in the Climate Steward course, she goes on to say, talk to people about what's positive, not alarm people, constructive actions that people can engage in individually, as a family, or as an organization, or at a place of work, and add your hand to that giant boulder and get it rolling down the hill a little bit faster. And I hope we can do that at Vista Del Monte.
It sounds like you already are. And I'm a huge fan of Dr. Katharine Hayhoe as well. And that is a wonderful article in last week's New York Times. And she also has a great Facebook presence, and she does these little videos called Global Weirding. But she really is, like you said, all about communication and talking about it and bringing it, just into general conversation to make it, more normalized. So I thank you for bringing that up and for all that you're doing. Really, really great to hear that. Thanks again.
Thank you.
We have one more guest here with us today to chat with, and that is Lisa Murphy Rivas. She's a dedicated mother, community volunteer, and professional with a consulting business. Lisa was born and raised in Santa Barbara, left town to go to CSU Long Beach, where she earned a bachelor's degree in journalism and marketing. After 16 years in Los Angeles and Orange counties, she returned to Santa Barbara to continue her career and start a family. She's raising two sons, aged 17 and 15, to be good-hearted contributors to society who will have the tools and perspectives to change the world. Go. Lisa has nearly 30 years of experience in public outreach and government relations, in addition to extensive experience with nonprofit organization management, strategic planning, and board facilitation. And Lisa is a proud graduate of our pilot course. Welcome, Lisa. And she's going to talk about her capstone here.
Thank you. So before we get to the slides, I'll just kind of give you a little bit of background on why I picked this capstone project. And when we were talking about the capstone, there was a little bit of anxiety and stress around it, but mostly because the ability and the options were so broad. Like Kathi said, you can do poetry, you can do art, you can do beach cleanup. It was like, oh, okay, none of that fits my my abilities. But along the lines of why I joined the class is because in my business and in my life, I know that a more direct focus on climate change was needed. I've worked in the water industry, in the wastewater industry, and the oil industry. And I'm raising two teen boys. And I know what's around us. And I also know something needs to be done. So I needed the language and I needed the education to understand how this could play out. So when I was looking at my capstone project, I wanted to focus on business. My brain goes to how to connect the business world and the business community to the climate engaged community. Not that they're not, but it's a pretty big hill that they're climbing right now. So I wanted to do a business related project. And we can start with the slides now. I have contacts at Montecito Bank and Trust, and I reached out to them to ask if I could create a framework for a plan that they could do if they were going to put some effort into sustainability. And their response was that yes, because they were actually already looking into this. And so I did it. So I created the plan, and what you see is some of the items I gave to them for how to do the plan. So the objectives of the plan were to identify, establish, educate and engage, and then act. And it was very important to talk about the action part, because Montecito Bank and Trust has the mind that they want to do something more than just saving paper and plastic. They wanted to do it intentionally. So we talked about the climate risks to the bank, to customers, and the communities it serves, sustainable operations and investments to reduce their carbon footprint and strengthen the sustainable culture at the bank, establish the corporate philosophy around climate protection, create a policy and plans, processes and messages. And then they wanted to go further in a way that they could kind of help customers and employees and everybody around them become involved in this, and then the ultimate to implement the plan. Next slide. So what we did, and actually they did call me and asked me to join them and help them with this plan. So we got that started in the last quarter of last year and started. It's like I said, it's a big hill to climb. There's a lot of work to do, but we defined the scope and the work and the timeline. And it is one of those things where they're in the process now of establishing the team. So they have a risk side of the house that was looking at their operations, their businesses, their investments. And then they have a marketing and branding side of the house that was really looking at what things were more customer facing. Like when you walk in, you get a pen, and the pen, when it runs out, what do you do with the pen? Do you throw it away and just pick up a new pen? Little things like that. So we did the audit of the operations is the stage we're at now. And then with the hopes of continuing to finish the plan. Next slide. And I just went very briefly through kind of where the capstone project was the plan, giving them the framework. The bank took it a step further by actually hiring me to say, please help us do this for now. And I just want to do a call out to Megan Orloff, who's the Chief Strategy Officer, because she accepted my offer to help them, because this is one of her priority projects for the bank, and it's the overall bank priority project. So that's kind of where we are with it.
Fantastic. Thank you you did want to do kind of business focused projects. And again, that's just because it met your area of interest, and then it turned into something even better for you. So that's great to see that it led to not only the bank taking it very seriously, but also, seeing you as the expert to help them do that.
Right.
And you were, it was fun to have you in the class. You were in the
class pet, Alan will say, and so will Tisha, they'll say it.
Yeah, Tisha's watching today, so you better be careful there.
Right.
The chat was very lively with you and Anne and Tisha and right. Alan and a lot of our other folks. So there's fun aspects to the class too, right?
Yeah. But one of the things that I do want to stress is when I came into the class, one of the things that was really interesting and impactful to me is the amount of science, data, and information that's available. And Alan touched on this. There's so much available that you can kind of pick an area of focus. But one of the things that was so daunting to me is if there's this much information available, how come we are not focusing on it, some aspect of it? And the how come is from my perspective, I was giving my energy other places. But to anybody who's thinking about getting involved in the class, there is something that will be of interest, whether it's the psychology behind climate change or the science behind it. It was beyond my expectation. It was really, really neat.
Wonderful. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, it really, there's a lot to it, but at the same time, it is broken up into kind of digestible pieces, and we have plenty of time to talk about it, which is another thing that makes it really special. So thank you so much. I'm going to try to get to a couple of questions here. We have some in the very few minutes that we have remaining. One of the key questions that we're asking is about scholarships, and our philosophy with this course is that no one will be turned away for lack of funds, and we have kept the price fairly low to make it accessible for those who are able to pay. It's $225, but like I said, we're at about 50% scholarship rate with the class currently, and that is also true of the incoming class. So please don't see that as a barrier at all. Let me see, are there other, Sarah? I think that was kind of one of the key questions that was up. I'm not seeing, it looks like, thank you, Eliot and others, for answering questions live as we went. So I think that covers one of the key questions. We had 2 more video clips, but I don't think we're going to have time to get to them, but we will link them in the email that we send out to you as a thank you. One of them's from Melody and the other one's from Ash, and they're really great. So hopefully you'll watch those on your own time, but I just want to make sure that we get to our closing information here. Please join me in thanking all of these people who gave of their time to plan and attend this webinar, and also to all the work that they put into the course. Hopefully they have inspired you to think about taking the course, or do other ways that you can be active in your community on climate. Paul, if you want to put up the slide for the course. Yeah, so we're taking applications now. We only have maybe half a dozen spots left in our class, and you can go to the next slide. I think it has when it's starting. It starts, this is all some of the more folks that we had. That starts January 26th, and the follow-up information we send will have links for you for the application and the web page that we have with all the information on it. Our next webinar is coming up pretty soon. It's in just a couple of weeks, on January 26th, and that will be kind of our annual policy discussion on environmental policies, and this is going to focus on what's happening at the federal level with Congressman Salud Carbajal and Michael Chiacos and Sigrid Wright from CEC. So please mark your calendar for that. And again, look for that follow-up email from us in a few days. We have a long weekend coming, so it might be early next week when you see that. Free events like this are just one of the ways that CEC works to advance rapid and equitable solutions to the climate crisis. CEC is one of only 5 nonprofits in Santa Barbara County to hold the highest ratings possible on both Charity Navigator and GuideStar. You can go to that last slide, Paul, as we close out here. We're finishing on time, yay. We try to get these done. That was tight, but I think it was also a lot of great conversation. So thank you for sticking with us here, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon. Have a great day.